The space battle raged around Earth's defensive line. Explosions lit up the darkness as human ships fought against the much larger Imperial vessels. General John Carter watched from the command bridge of his ship, the Defiant. His face showed no fear, only deep concentration. For 3 decades, humans had fought the Galactic Empire's occupation, and Carter had led the resistance for the last 10 years. "General, we're surrounded," said Lieutenant Doyle, her voice steady despite the dire situation. "Imperial ships are closing in from all sides." Carter nodded. He had known this was a possibility when they launched their attack on the Empire's fuel depot. "Tell all ships to prepare for jump coordinates. We'll break through their eastern flank." The bridge shook violently as another blast hit their shields. Warning lights flashed red across the control panels. "Shields at 20%, called out another officer. "We can't take much more of this." Carter gripped the command rail tightly. He had escaped the Empire's grasp many times before, earning him the nickname Ghost General among both his people and the enemy. But this time felt different. "Sir, the Imperial flagship is hailing us," said Doyle. "Put it through," Carter ordered. A tall, blue-skinned figure appeared on the main screen. Archon Vexthor, Supreme Commander of the Imperial forces in the Earth sector, smiled with too many teeth. "General Carter," the alien said, his voice unnaturally smooth. "Your little resistance has been amusing, but I'm afraid playtime is over. Surrender now, or watch as we destroy your entire fleet." Carter looked around at his crew. Good people, brave fighters. They had families waiting for them back on Earth and in the hidden colonies. "Let the fleet go and I'll surrender myself," Carter said. The bridge erupted in protests, but Carter raised his hand for silence. "An interesting offer," said Vexthor. "The infamous Ghost General in exchange for a few hundred obsolete ships? The Empire will accept these terms." When the transmission ended, Major Lisa Green stepped forward. She had been Carter's second-in-command for 5 years, and the anger on her face was clear. "You can't do this, sir," she said. "The Resistance needs you." Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. "The Resistance needs to survive, Lisa. They need you now. Get our people home." 30 minutes later, Carter stood alone in the airlock as the Imperial shuttle docked with his ship. His weapons had been placed on the floor as agreed. When the door slid open, 6 Imperial guards in black armor stepped through, weapons pointed at his chest. "General John Carter," said the lead guard. "You are now prisoner of the Galactic Empire. The Emperor will be pleased." Carter said nothing as they placed restraints on his wrists and led him onto their shuttle. Through the window, he watched as his ship grew smaller, joining the rest of the human fleet as they jumped away to safety, his last view of freedom. On the Imperial flagship, the Eternal Dominion, Carter was led through long corridors lined with alien technology. The few humans he saw were slaves, heads bowed and spirits broken. Carter walked with his back straight and his eyes forward, ignoring the curious looks from Imperial officers. In the detention center, Archon Vexthor waited with another figure. A thin, pale alien with 6 fingers on each hand and large black eyes, High Inquisitor Morgzal, the Empire's most feared interrogator. "Welcome, General," said Vexthor, spreading his arms. "Your capture will be celebrated across the Empire tonight. The human resistance will crumble without its leader." "You know nothing about humans," Carter replied calmly. "Cut off one head, 2 more grow back." Vexthor laughed. "Such spirit. I look forward to watching it break." He turned to Morgzal. "He's all yours, Inquisitor. The Emperor wants any information about the Resistance, their bases, their plans, their weapons." Morgzal bowed slightly. "It will be my pleasure, Archon." Far away on a hidden asteroid base, Major Lisa Green stood before the Resistance Leadership Council. Her eyes were red, but her voice remained strong. "General Carter sacrificed himself to save our fleet," she told them. "We must ensure his sacrifice wasn't in vain." An older man slammed his fist on the table. "We should mount a rescue mission immediately." Green shook her head. "The Eternal Dominion is the most heavily guarded ship in the sector. A direct assault would be suicide." "So we just leave him there?" asked another council member. "No," said Green. "We continue fighting. That's what the General would want. And we look for opportunities to bring him home. She paused. There's something else. Before the general surrendered, he asked me to contact Dr. Alan West. Several council members exchanged worried glances. The scientist? Someone asked. What for? I don't know, Green admitted, but I've already sent the message. In his cell aboard the Eternal Dominion, Carter sat on the cold metal floor. The room was perfectly square, with no furniture and no visible door once it had closed behind him. The walls glowed faintly, providing just enough light to see. He had been in Imperial captivity once before, very briefly, during the early years of the occupation. He had escaped within hours. This time would be different. The Empire had learned from their mistakes. Carter closed his eyes and thought about Earth, about green fields and blue skies, about the faces of people who looked to him for hope. No matter what happened next, he wouldn't betray them. The wall in front of him suddenly rippled and Morgzal stepped through as if passing through water. General Carter, said the Inquisitor, his voice high and musical. Let's not waste time. You know why I'm here? Carter said nothing. The interrogation will happen with or without your cooperation, continued Morgzal. The only question is how much you will suffer before you tell me everything I want to know. Carter finally spoke. My people have a saying. Everyone breaks eventually. I won't pretend otherwise, but I'll give you nothing useful. Morgzal smiled. We shall see. The wall rippled again and 2 guards entered. Between them floated a metal sphere covered in blinking lights and small, sharp instruments. This is a mind extractor, explained Morgzal. An unpleasant but effective tool. It will help me navigate your memories while causing considerable pain. Where shall we begin? Perhaps with the location of your hidden colonies. Carter stared straight ahead. Do what you must. As the sphere floated closer, Morgzal added, the pain will be unlike anything you've experienced before. Many go insane within minutes. Some have even died from shock. Then we'll find out what I'm made of, Carter replied. The sphere began to spin, its instruments extending. Carter closed his eyes and prepared himself for what was to come. His last thought before the pain began was of Earth, and the hope that somewhere, someone was working on a way to push back against the Empire. He didn't scream when the first probe entered his mind. But he knew that wouldn't last. The real test was just beginning. Pain was all John Carter knew now. 3 days had passed since his capture, though in his cell without windows or clocks it felt like an eternity. The mind extractor had been used on him 6 times. Each session left him weaker, but still he revealed nothing important. Morgzal stood over Carter's crumpled form on the cell floor. The human's body was covered in small puncture wounds from the mind extractor's probes. Despite his condition, Carter's eyes still held defiance. Impressive resilience, General, said Morgzal. Most species break completely by now. Your pain threshold is remarkable. Carter spat blood onto the floor. Glad to hear I'm special. The Inquisitor circled him slowly. During our last session, I noticed something unusual in your neural patterns. Your mind repairs itself in ways I've never seen before. How fascinating. A guard entered the cell with a tray of instruments. Morgzal selected a small silver device that hummed when activated. Perhaps a more direct approach will yield results, he said. This will stimulate your pain receptors without causing physical damage. The experience is quite unbearable, I'm told. Carter closed his eyes. He thought of Earth, of blue skies and the smell of grass after rain, simple things worth protecting. Meanwhile, on the hidden asteroid base, Major Lisa Green met with Dr. Alan West in his laboratory. West was a thin man with wild gray hair and tired eyes. His lab was cluttered with equipment salvaged from abandoned Earth research facilities. Thank you for coming, Major, said West, leading her to a sealed room. General Carter contacted me 3 months ago about my research. I didn't understand why he was interested until now. Inside the room, a large machine hummed softly. At its center was a container holding what looked like glowing blue tissue. What am I looking at, Doctor? Asked Green. Human brain tissue, explained West. But look at these readings. He pointed to a screen showing pulsing waves of energy. All humans emit a specific neural energy signature, but certain rare individuals show a mutation that produces a much stronger signal. Green studied the screen. What does this have to do with General Carter? He's one of those rare individuals, said West. He brought me a sample of his blood 6 months ago for testing. His neural signature is the strongest I've ever recorded. I still don't understand, said Green. How does this help us rescue him? West hesitated. It might not help with rescue, but there's something else. He pulled out a small device. This is a quantum field detector. It can identify specific neural signatures across vast distances, even through Imperial blocking technology. You can track the General? Green asked, hope rising in her voice. Yes and no, said West. I can monitor his neural signature. If anything happens to him, if his signature disappears or changes, we'll know. And then what? West looked away. I don't know yet, but the General seemed to think it was important. Back on the Imperial flagship, Carter screamed as the pain device sent waves of agony through his body. His mind felt like it was being torn apart and reassembled wrong. Through the haze of pain, he saw Morgzal watching him with clinical interest. When the device was finally deactivated, Carter lay gasping on the floor. Interesting, said Morgzal, examining a scanner. Your neural pathways are actually rewiring themselves as we speak. I've never seen anything like it. Lucky me, Carter wheezed. The cell door opened and Archon Vexthor entered. The Imperial commander looked down at Carter with disgust. Any progress, Inquisitor? He asked. The human's mind is unusually resilient, replied Morgzal. But more importantly, his brain shows remarkable regenerative properties. I believe further study could be valuable. Vexthor waved dismissively. The Emperor grows impatient. We need information on the resistance bases now. I understand, Archon, but no. More delays, snapped Vexthor. Use the memory extractor at full power. If his mind breaks, so be it. After Vexthor left, Morgzal knelt beside Carter. It seems our time together is limited, General. A pity. Your species holds fascinating secrets. Carter managed a weak smile. You have no idea. The next session was worse than all the others combined. The mind extractor's probes dug deeper into Carter's brain, searching forcefully through his memories. Blood ran from his nose and ears as Morgzal pushed the machine beyond safe limits. Images flashed through Carter's mind. The day Earth was invaded, his family hiding in the ruins of Chicago, his first battle against Imperial forces, secret resistance bases, faces of his officers. He fought to hide the important information, to push forward meaningless memories instead. The human colony on Mars, Carter gasped, feeding them outdated information. Abandoned 3 years ago. Morgzal smiled. Now we're making progress. In Dr. West's lab, alarms suddenly blared. Green rushed in to find West staring at his screens in shock. What's happening? She demanded. It's the General's neural signature, said West. It's fluctuating wildly. They must be doing something terrible to him. The pattern on the screen pulsed erratically, then began to stabilize into a new configuration. I've never seen anything like this, whispered West. His brain is evolving, adapting to whatever they're doing to him. Green watched the display, her hands clenched into fists. Can he survive this? I don't know, admitted West. But if anyone can, it's him. After hours of torture, Carter was barely conscious. Morgzal had extracted some information, all of it outdated or misleading, but not enough to satisfy the Empire. Vexthor returned to the cell, this time with several Imperial officials. Enough of this. We're getting nowhere, and the Emperor wants this finished. Prepare the prisoner for public execution. Morgzal protested. Archon, I strongly advise against this. The human's neural structure shows unique properties that deserve further study. Your objection is noted, Inquisitor, said Vexthor coldly. The execution will proceed tomorrow. It will be broadcast across all human settlements as a warning. As the guards lifted Carter from the floor, Morgzal leaned close to him. A waste of potential, he whispered. Carter, blood trickling from his mouth, looked directly into the Inquisitor's large black eyes. Death isn't what you think it is, he whispered back. Morgzal stepped back, surprised. What do you mean, human? But Carter said nothing more as the guards dragged him away. In West's lab, the alarms finally stopped. The neural signature had stabilized into a pattern West had never seen before. What's happening now? Asked Green. I don't know, said West. But whatever they did to him, his brain has adapted. These readings... He shook his head in disbelief. They're not like anything I've seen in a human before. Green studied the scientist's face. Is that good or bad? Neither. It's simply different. West looked at her. We need to prepare for anything. What do you mean? The Empire will likely make an example of him, said West grimly. We should be ready to watch, and to act if necessary. Green nodded, her face set with determination. I'll gather the officers. Whatever happens next, we face it together. As night fell across the galaxy, two very different groups prepared for the coming day. The Empire readying a public execution, and the human resistance bracing for the loss of their greatest leader. Neither knew that something unprecedented was about to occur, something that would change the balance of power forever. The day of execution arrived. The Eternal Dominion moved into orbit around Earth so humans everywhere could witness their general's death. Imperial ships surrounded the flagship, their weapons aimed at the planet below as a warning against any rescue attempt. Inside the execution chamber, Carter was secured to a metal platform in the center of a circular room. His body was weak from days of torture, but his eyes remained alert. He wore a simple gray prison uniform stained with his own blood. Around him, Imperial officials and military officers gathered to witness the event. Archon Vexthor stood on a raised platform, his blue skin almost glowing under the bright lights. He wore ceremonial armor with the Imperial crest across his chest. Beside him, Morgzal watched with scientific curiosity rather than satisfaction. Begin the broadcast, ordered Vexthor. On screens across Earth and human colonies, the Imperial symbol appeared, followed by the interior of the execution chamber. Humans everywhere stopped what they were doing to watch. Some turned away in fear, others watched in defiance, many prayed. In Dr. West's laboratory, Major Green and several resistance officers stood grimly before a large screen. West monitored his equipment, which still tracked Carter's neural signature. Humans of Earth and its colonies. Vexthor's voice boomed across the broadcast. Today you witness the price of defiance. General John Carter, leader of your futile resistance, will now face Imperial justice. Let his death be a lesson to all who oppose the Galactic Empire. Vexthor turned to Carter. Do you have any final words, General? Carter lifted his head and looked directly into the camera. His voice was weak but clear. To my fellow humans, never surrender. What makes us human cannot be killed. Vexthor laughed, bold words from a man about to be erased from existence. He nodded to the executioner. Proceed with molecular dissolution. The executioner, a tall alien with gray skin, activated a control panel. A humming sound filled the chamber as a device lowered from the ceiling. It looked like a metal ring surrounded by small glowing orbs. Molecular dissolution, West explained to Green as they watched. It breaks down the body at the atomic level. There's nothing left afterward. No one has ever survived it. Green's hands tightened into fists. We should have tried to save him. That's what the Empire wanted, said an older officer. They were ready for an attack. It would have been a massacre. The device above Carter began to spin faster and faster. The orbs glowed brighter, emitting beams of light that converged on his body. Carter closed his eyes as his skin began to glow. The process will take approximately 3 minutes, said the executioner. The subject will experience the sensation of being torn apart, cell by cell, until his consciousness fades. Carter's body began to shimmer as the beams intensified. His face showed pain, but he made no sound. Slowly, his fingers began to dissolve into particles of light, then his hands, his arms. In West's lab, the equipment monitoring Carter's neural signature began to emit a high-pitched alarm. "His pattern is destabilizing," said West, frantically, adjusting controls. "But there's something strange happening. The signature isn't simply disappearing, it's changing, spreading somehow." On the screen, Carter's body continued to dissolve. His torso was now mostly gone, leaving only his head and shoulders intact. His eyes suddenly opened, looking directly at the camera with unexpected calm. Then, with a final flash of light, he was gone. Nothing remained on the platform. The execution chamber fell silent. Vexthor stepped forward. "It is done. The Ghost General is no more. Let this be a warning to all who defy the Empire." As the Imperial officials began to file out, Morgzal lingered, staring at the empty platform with puzzled eyes. Something didn't feel right to him, though he couldn't explain why. In the lab, West's equipment had gone silent. Green stood with her head bowed, tears on her cheeks. Other officers looked lost, uncertain what to do next. "The signature is gone," West confirmed quietly. "But..." He frowned at his readings. "This makes no sense. It's like his neural energy dispersed rather than disappeared. I've never seen anything like it." "What does that mean?" asked Green. "I don't know," admitted West. "Probably nothing. Just an unusual reading during death." Back on the Imperial flagship, most officials had left the execution chamber. A few technicians remained, preparing to power down the equipment. Vexthor and several high-ranking officers had moved to a celebration in the main hall, already toasting their victory. Morgzal stood alone in the chamber, still troubled by something he couldn't name. He approached the platform where Carter had died and ran a scanner over the empty space. "Curious," he murmured. "There should be no energy readings at all, yet I'm detecting something. Some kind of residual pattern." One of the technicians approached. "Sir, we need to reset the dissolution equipment. Standard procedure after an execution." "Not yet," said Morgzal. "I want to run more scans." The technician looked nervous. "Sir, the Archon ordered the room cleared. The broadcast is over." Morgzal waved him away irritably. His scanner was picking up increasing energy levels where Carter had been. That was impossible. After molecular dissolution, nothing should remain, not even energy. 17 minutes after Carter's confirmed death, the monitoring equipment suddenly began to activate on its own. Lights flashed across control panels as power surged through the systems. "What's happening?" demanded Morgzal. The technicians rushed to the controls. "Unknown, sir. The dissolution field is reversing somehow." "That's not possible." In the center of the platform, particles of light began to appear, swirling together. Slowly, they took shape. First a skeletal outline, then muscle tissue, organs, skin. "Sound the alarm," shouted Morgzal, backing away from the platform. "Get the Archon back here now." In West's lab, the equipment suddenly came back to life, screeching loudly. Everyone jumped in surprise. "What's happening?" demanded Green. West stared at his screens in disbelief. It's Carter's neural signature. It's back, but different, stronger, more complex." On the flagship, the swirling particles continued to form a human shape. Guards rushed into the execution chamber, weapons raised. Morgzal watched in fascination and horror as a body materialized where nothing had been moments before. John Carter's body reformed completely, naked and unmarked, looking healthier than he had in years. For a moment he lay motionless on the platform, then his eyes snapped open. They glowed with an intense blue light that was not human. The guards backed away in terror. One fired his weapon, but the energy blast dissipated before reaching Carter's body. Carter sat up slowly, looking at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. When he spoke, his voice was deeper, resonating with power. "I told you," he said, looking directly at Morgzal. "Death isn't what you think it is." Alarms blared throughout the Eternal Dominion as the impossible news spread. The executed human general had returned from death. And clearly, He was no longer the same man they had killed. Chaos erupted on the Eternal Dominion. Guards surrounded Carter, weapons aimed at him. Morgzal stood frozen, his scientific mind struggling to accept what he was seeing. This defied everything he knew about life and death. Carter looked at the guards calmly, as if they were no threat at all. He raised his hand slowly, and every electronic device in the room flickered. The guards' weapons powered down instantly. "How is this possible?" Morgzal whispered. "You were completely dissolved. Nothing remained, not even atoms." Carter stepped down from the platform, his movements smooth and confident. "You understand so little about consciousness," he said, "about what humans truly are." The chamber doors burst open as more guards rushed in, followed by Archon Vexthor. The Imperial commander's face showed shock, then fury. "Kill him," Vexthor ordered. "Use physical weapons if energy weapons fail." Guards drew blades and rushed at Carter. He moved with impossible speed, dodging their attacks. When he touched one guard's armor, the alien froze in place, his electronic systems completely shut down. "Fascinating," said Carter, examining his hand. "I can interface with technology directly." While fighting, Carter placed his palm against a control panel. Information flowed into his mind. Ship schematics, security codes, communication channels. Knowledge that should have taken years to learn was his in seconds. "The human is accessing our systems," shouted a technician. Vexthor pulled out his ceremonial blade. "I'll end this aberration myself." On the hidden asteroid base, West's lab was in an uproar. The screens showed Carter's neural signature, now pulsing with patterns never seen before. "He's alive," Green said, her voice filled with wonder. "How is this possible?" West studied the readings with growing excitement. His consciousness must have persisted in the quantum field somehow, then reformed his physical body using energy from the execution device itself. "What does that mean?" asked an officer. "It means," said West, "that Carter has transcended normal human limitations. His consciousness exists beyond his physical form now." Green pointed to a screen showing Imperial communications. "Look, the Empire is in chaos. They're reporting that Carter escaped the execution chamber and is moving through the ship." "We need to help him," said Green. "How?" asked another officer. "The flagship is surrounded by the Imperial fleet." "We gather everyone we can," said Green firmly, "and prepare for his signal." Back on the flagship, Carter moved through corridors, touching walls and accessing systems. Each contact gave him more knowledge. Guards tried to stop him, but their weapons malfunctioned when aimed at him. Those who got close found themselves facing strength and speed no human should possess. Carter now wore an Imperial uniform taken from a guard. As he reached a communications center, he placed his hands on the main console. His eyes glowed brighter as he accessed the ship's transmission systems. "This is General John Carter," he broadcast across all frequencies. "To all humans in the Empire, what you witnessed was not a trick. Death has no hold on us anymore. We are more than the Empire ever understood." In his private chamber, Vexthor watched the broadcast with growing rage. "How is he doing this? Our best blocking technology can't stop him." An Imperial scientist looked up from a scanner. "Sir, the human's brain patterns are completely altered. He appears to be processing information at rates that should be impossible for his species." "I don't care what he's become," snarled Vexthor. "I want him destroyed, permanently." Carter continued moving through the ship, healing fully as he went. Every system he touched revealed more Imperial secrets. He learned about weapons, defense systems, and, most importantly, the Empire's deepest fear, that humans might someday realize their true potential. In an Imperial database, Carter found ancient records about Earth, records that had been hidden for centuries. They spoke of humans as the dormant ones, a species with untapped abilities that frightened even the technologically advanced Empire. "So that's why they invaded," Carter murmured. "Not for resources or territory. They feared what we might become." An alarm blared as the ship's engine suddenly powered up. Carter sensed Vexthor's plan to take the flagship away from Earth, to somewhere Carter could be contained and studied. He needed to escape, but more importantly, he needed to share what he had learned. He made his way toward the shuttle bay, using his new connection to technology to clear his path. Doors opened before him and sealed behind him, trapping his pursuers. On the Resistance base, Dr. West received a direct transmission from the flagship. It contained massive amounts of data, Imperial secrets, technologies, and something else. Research about human neural patterns. "Carter is sending us everything he's learning," said West in amazement. "And instructions for some kind of neural stimulation device." Green looked over his shoulder. "What would that do?" "According to these notes," said West, "it could potentially awaken similar abilities in other humans with the right genetic markers." "How many humans have these markers?" asked an officer. West studied the data. "According to this, about 1 in 10,000. But the numbers are increasing with each generation." "An evolutionary response," said Green. "We're adapting to fight back." On the flagship, Carter reached the shuttle bay. Imperial forces had set up a blockade, with elite guards wearing non-electronic armor and carrying primitive projectile weapons. "You cannot escape, human," said their commander. "Whatever you've become, you are still mortal." Carter smiled. "Am I?" "Let's find out." The guards opened fire. Carter moved faster than their eyes could follow, dodging most shots. Those that hit him caused wounds that healed almost instantly. He reached the nearest shuttle and placed his hand on its access panel. The door opened immediately. "Stop him," shouted Vexthor over the communication system. "That shuttle contains experimental technology." Carter entered the shuttle and connected with its systems. It was indeed special, designed for deep space exploration, with capabilities far beyond standard Imperial craft. "Perfect," said Carter, as the engines fired up. Outside, the bay doors remained sealed. Carter simply touched the shuttle's communication array and sent a command directly to the door mechanisms. They began to open. "All weapons, fire on that shuttle," ordered Vexthor. Energy blasts struck the shuttle, but Carter had already activated its shields. The craft lifted off the deck and shot out of the bay into open space. Imperial ships moved to intercept. But Carter's connection to the shuttle made him one with the craft. He flew with impossible skill, evading their attacks while sending a message to the Resistance. "Prepare for my arrival," he transmitted. "And prepare for war. The Empire's greatest weakness is now our greatest strength." As Carter's shuttle disappeared into hyperspace, Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, his fists clenched in rage. "What just happened?" demanded an Imperial Council member via hologram. "Something impossible," admitted Vexthor. "The human came back from death, and he brought something with him. Something that makes him more dangerous than any human has ever been. Find him," ordered the council member. "Whatever it takes." But even as the order was given, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Other humans were showing signs of awakening abilities. The execution broadcast had been seen by billions, and somehow it had triggered something dormant in human genetics. The Empire's worst fear was coming true. 3 weeks after Carter's escape, the Resistance had changed. Dr. West had built the neural stimulation device using the data Carter sent. They tested it on volunteers with the rare genetic marker. The results were remarkable. Major Lisa Green was among the first to undergo the procedure. She now stood with Carter in the command center of their new base, her eyes occasionally flashing with the same blue light as his. "The Imperial fleet is moving," she said, her mind connected to surveillance systems across the sector. "They're gathering at these coordinates." She touched a screen and the star map zoomed in to show dozens of Imperial ships. Carter nodded. "They think overwhelming force will stop us. They still don't understand what's happening." Around them, other officers worked at stations, some showing signs of awakened abilities. Some could process information at incredible speeds. Others could connect with technology like Carter. Each manifestation was different, but equally powerful. "How many humans have been awakened now?" asked Carter. "Over 3,000, replied West, entering the room. The scientist looked exhausted but excited. And the number grows daily. Something about your return triggered a cascade effect. Even without the device, some humans are spontaneously developing abilities. The Empire knows this, said Green. That's why they're preparing for a final assault on Earth. They want to end this before it spreads further. Carter touched a console, connecting directly with the base's systems. Then we meet them before they reach Earth. We show them what humanity has become. The Resistance fleet gathered in deep space. It was much smaller than the Imperial Armada, only 30 ships against hundreds. But these ships were now crewed by awakened humans who could interface directly with their vessels, making them far more effective than normal. Carter stood on the bridge of the lead ship, now named Lazarus. The name felt appropriate for the one who had returned from death. He wore a simple black uniform with no rank insignia. He no longer needed such symbols. "All ships ready, General," said Captain Frank Miller, one of the few officers without awakened abilities. He still respected Carter's authority, even though Carter had changed so much. "I'm not a general anymore, Frank," said Carter with a small smile. "I'm something else now. We all are." "You'll always be general to me, sir," said Miller, "no matter what you've become." The Imperial fleet appeared at the edge of the system, led by the massive dreadnought Eternal Justice. On its bridge, Archon Vexthor prepared for battle. "The human fleet is tiny," said an officer. "This will be over quickly." "Do not underestimate them," warned Morgzal, who had been studying the awakened humans. "They are not the same beings we fought before," Vexthor sneered. "No matter what abilities they've gained, they cannot stand against the might of the Empire. Begin the attack." The Imperial ships moved forward, thousands of fighters launching from their bays. Energy weapons charged, targeting the small human fleet. But as they moved to attack, something unexpected happened. The human ships began to move in ways that should have been impossible, predicting Imperial tactics before they happened. On the Lazarus, Carter stood with his eyes closed, his mind connected not just to his ship, but to the entire human fleet. Through him, every captain knew exactly where to move, when to fire, how to evade. "Impossible," whispered Vexthor as he watched the battle unfold. Small human ships danced around Imperial dreadnoughts, their shots precisely targeting weak points no outsider should have known about. "Sir," said a panicked officer, "they're accessing our systems somehow. Ship defenses are failing." The battle turned quickly. Without their technological advantage, the Imperial forces found themselves outmatched by the awakened humans. One by one, their ships were disabled or destroyed. On the Eternal Justice, Vexthor received a direct communication from Carter. "This is your only warning, Archon," said Carter, his voice calm. "Leave Earth space permanently. Tell your Emperor that humanity is now off limits." "You think one victory makes you our equal," snarled Vexthor. "The Empire spans galaxies. We'll return with forces that will overwhelm whatever you've become." "You still don't understand," said Carter. "We're not trying to defeat your Empire, we just want to be left alone. But if you force this conflict to continue, you won't like the outcome." Suddenly, Carter appeared on the bridge of the Eternal Justice, not physically, but as a projection created by his mind interfacing with their systems. "How are you doing this?" demanded Vexthor, drawing back in shock. "The same way I returned from death," said Carter. "Human consciousness isn't limited to our bodies. The Empire knew this once. It's why you feared us." Carter's projection walked around the bridge, Imperial officers backing away in fear. "I've accessed your ancient records. Earth was quarantined millennia ago because your ancestors saw our potential. They feared what we might become if we ever realized our true nature." "Lies," said Vexthor, though uncertainty showed in his eyes. "The truth," replied Carter. "And now that truth is awakening in all of us. So I offer you a choice, peace or extinction." 2 days later, the Imperial Council held an emergency session. Reports from across the galaxy showed humans everywhere beginning to manifest abilities. The invasion that had been meant to control humanity had instead accelerated their evolution. We must negotiate, said a counselor. These awakened humans could tear the Empire apart if they chose to. Never, said the Emperor, his ancient face twisted with anger. We cannot show weakness. It is not weakness to recognize a changing reality, said Morgzal, who had been invited to speak. The humans don't want our territories or our resources. They merely want to be left to develop on their own path. A path that could eventually challenge even us, said the Emperor. Yes, admitted Morgzal. But that challenge may come whether we want it or not. The question is whether we face it as enemies or as potential allies. On Earth, humans celebrated their unexpected victory. For the first time in 30 years, no Imperial ships darkened their skies. But for the awakened ones like Carter and Green, the work was just beginning. What do we do now? Asked Green as they stood watching the sunrise from a hillside outside the rebuilt city of New Denver. We build, said Carter. We learn. We become what we were always meant to be. And the Empire? They'll be back eventually, said Carter. Not as conquerors, but as equals seeking to understand what we've become. And by then, we'll be ready. He looked at the blue sky, so like the energy that now flowed through his eyes when he used his abilities. Humanity had suffered under the Imperial boot, but that suffering had forged them into something new, something powerful. The Empire had tortured a human general until he died. But 17 minutes later, he returned, and with him came humanity's awakening to their true potential. It was just the beginning.